and our very, very special guest from also across the ocean, like last week, but from the UK, it's Brian. How do you say your last name, Brian?
Jater.
Brian Jater. Perfect. Thank you so much for joining us. For everyone watching across Canada and around the world, we have lots and lots of questions to get through. So again, we have an all-star panel. We're not going to do any intros today because you guys have seen us last week. But I would like to ask our special guest, Brian, if you could give us a brief intro, let us know what you do at Trotec, maybe some experience.
No problem. Thanks, Lev. I've been with Trotec for 10 years, at the beginning as a sales guy, and more recently moved on to sales director. Prior to that, I spent 12 years selling a different brand of laser cutters, engravers. So 22 years in total. So with any luck, I should be able to answer some of the questions. Here's hoping.
That's awesome. Thank you again for being with us. And again, we'll do a quick sound off to everyone who's out there. If you guys want to put on the chat where you're from, say hello. We'd love to see you guys. We have Trotec UK is watching. That's awesome. So
Right.
Your whole team is watching. No pressure there.
No pressure there.
Okay, so we got lots of questions to get through. So we're going to get through our priority questions. Again, if you guys want to ask priority questions that we'll definitely answer, you can find the link here. So it's bit.ly/ask Trotec, and then we'll definitely ask them. If we don't ask them today, we'll ask them next week. So definitely put those in, or the week after that for the most part. Here's, so we got Toronto, Michigan, Durham, UK, from the highways of Alberta. Hey, Doug, how's it going? Awesome. Welcome, guys. All right, great. So I guess we'll go. We'll start with the questions. So the very first one, I'm going to just read it where they're from. This one's actually from Sudbury, Ontario, from Richard. So there are actually 3 questions. So engraving on glasses and mugs, the types of materials that I can use on my laser, and how to work better with the Corel Draw. Does anybody want to start with this?
I'll take the glass.
Sure.
When you're engraving on glass, whether it's flat or round, typically what most people are doing is they're just going to put the glass in there and engrave. So there's a couple of techniques to working with glass. You don't go with the old. Some people will say the cheaper the glass, the better. That's really, anytime I've engraved, that's really not a rule that I go by. But if you're gonna engrave it raw without any pre-mask on it or anything, you will get some glass sharding on that. Where what happens is the laser fractures the glass. So if you look at it really, really closely, there's little pieces of glass that sort of break away from the glass, but they still get stuck to the glass. And what happens sometimes is that glass will fall off. So if you're laser etching glass and you run your finger on it, you feel some shards. Some people will take that glass out and they'll rub it on their pants to get rid of the glass. Typically, some people will do is maybe not use 100%.
Oh, Mike, you got stuck.
So maybe use an 8. Sometimes, if you want to do a proper job, you want to use wet newspaper, where you will take a little rectangle of newspaper, wet it down, put it on the glass, and etch through that. Don't ask me why it works, but it works. The problem I always have with that is that if you want to cut back on your exhaust a little bit, because what happens sometimes you get halfway through the job and the paper will dry out and the paper will come off the glass. So what I suggest to people, if they have the opportunity, the pricing in the job is to use an actual transfer mask. We sell that at Trotec. Really all it is just a transfer paper that people use to transfer vinyl letters off a carrier onto something else. So it's like a masking tape. I've even used masking tape before. But again, what that does is that gives you a finer, the fractures are a lot smaller, and it's a lot smoother, and you don't get the little shards that come off of it. So maybe not something you might want to do if you charge $1.50 per glass, but certainly something if you charged more money for a glass and you had a little bit more profit in there to account for your labor, then certainly you're going to want to use that. Just remember when you say mugs there, you can't do porcelain mugs, but we do sell the Thermark's black spray if you want to try some of your ceramic mugs and all that. I've had some success using that. And again, you're probably going to use a rotary attachment. So that's my to-do on glass.
Yeah, I just wanted to, I'm just showing on the screen, if you guys go to our website, engraving-supplies.ca, if you're in the UK and watching, it's .co.uk. Actually, Brian, I'm not sure if you guys sell masking tape, but we do in Canada. So if you just type in masking, you can find this kind of masking tape that Mike is talking about.
Just make sure that when you use the masking or use the wet newspaper, that you try to keep it as flat as you can. If it starts to bubble up, sometimes it will distort the engraving a little bit. So when you're working on a wine glass or something with a really large bubble on it, becomes a little bit more of an issue. If you are working with leaded glass, which I've done lots of leaded glass, again, you have to use the transfer paper, I normally if I'm running a 60 watt Speedy 300, when I'm using the transfer mask, I'm normally using about 100 power and maybe about 67.
Yeah, he's frozen again.
Speed. Now, whether it gets up to that is questionable. You're still already such a smaller area. Okay. So, but that's sort of what my speed and power settings would, 500 DPI. A lot of times you could probably even go to a lower resolution, even a 300 DPI. You're not going to notice much difference on a glass.
And just regarding that, Mike, did you ever do anything for mirrored glass? We have that question from Faraz.
Yeah, mirrored glass, again, just remember on a mirrored glass, and what I've done on a mirrored glass is I've etched from the back, and then I painted it from the back, so you can burn off that plating on the back of the mirror. And then what I did was I etched on the front, so the front was frosted, so it looked like it was floating on top of the color. So it looked really, really nice. I had a really good sample until marketing broke it. But
they break everything.
But no, I did. It was like 4 colors. What I did was I put it in, and then I etched it, and then the same way the reverse material, I took it out, I sprayed it, put it back in again, then etched the way the plating, and then sprayed the next color, and then I flipped it over, and then I did the frosted on the other side, and it looked really, really cool.
So, but it basically works like
you've got some extra time. It's certainly
yeah. Sorry, it works as like just similar to a glass. Even if you put a masking tape on it, etch it from the front, and if you put a spotlight on it, it looks 3-dimensional actually from the front.
It floats. It's really, really, really cool. Yeah,
and
the front of the mirror is just like normal glass. So
those of you with a fiber laser, glass is really fun too, because the fiber laser shoots right through the glass part. If you've got a painted surface on the back of glass, you can actually shoot the fiber through the glass at a very low power and just take off the bond between the glass and the paint. And you can actually keep it nice and the back of the glass nice and clear still, and take the paint off without etching. And also with mirror too, you can do some really cool fine frosted effects on the actual silver of the mirror with a fiber laser by shooting through the glass into the surface of the silver of the mirror, and do some really cool effects that way as well.
Very cool.
Yeah, just remember if you are going to paint the mirror from behind, that you only etch on the glass once, because if you hit it twice, what you'll do is it'll be like normal glass and it'll frost. And then when you go to spray paint it, it won't look very good. So if you are going to paint from the back of the glass, etch it and then paint it.
We've got a message from Deborah said, Mike, you just have to make a new sample.
Well, as long as Lev promises not to break it.
Yeah. So, sorry. Additional technical explanation why we need the masking tape on the glass or mirror. Because the laser is not like a continuous light, right? It's not like a flashlight. You turn it on, it's on. It's actually pulsing. So the mask, what it does, it absorbs that initial impact onto the glass, so it's not creating that dust particles on the glass or mirror. That's why you get a better effect after you engrave or etch on glass. You don't feel that that rough surface after.
Yeah, Matt had
if you want to do photographs, if you want to do photographs, you have to use the transfer mask to do photographs. I did do a YouTube video on that. It's pretty long. I've had a lot of, again, it was something that I came up with years ago because people said you can't do photos on glass, and so I took the transfer mask and was able to work it out, and it comes up very, very nice. So it's very, very good. As a matter of fact, maybe what I'll do is I'll run and grab a sample.
Mike, I got it here. Like if you guys type in Trotec transfer mask, this is the one Mike is talking about on YouTube. Just type in Trotec transfer mask and you'll see that full video here. Mike already ran off. Okay. Did you guys have any, so this question is from Matt, I guess, on the same topic. Any suggestions from vacuum sealed glass? He said, I had a disaster, a two-walled vacuum sealed beer glass. James, did you ever, James or Brian, did you guys ever have that?
No, a vacuum sealed beer glass. Like usually the vacuum sealed stuff is all like metal. I'm not sure what a vacuum sealed beer glass is, but I'd love to try one.
Yeah, you can freeze that glass because it's got water inside. So you can put it in the freezer. It freezes the water in between those two walls and keeps your beer really cold. Yeah. So what was the question again then?
Sorry, Mike. Did you ever? There's a question here about the glass. I had a disaster with a two-walled vacuum sealed beer glass. Any suggestion, or just stay away from vacuum sealed glass? Did you ever have that, Mike?
I never done the vacuum sealed. So I don't know what the disaster would have been. The only issue I've ever had, is certainly cracking a glass because I accidentally vector cut it instead of raster engraved it. But again, if I use the mask, the transfer mask, that seems to dissipate the heat a lot better. And certainly crystal is a hard thing to engrave because it's got some lead in it, right? Especially if it's a leaded crystal. So you get that different expansion rate, between the metal and the glass. So you've got to be very careful with the power, and you get a lot more detail, finer detail with the mask than you do if you're just etching directly right on the glass. So if you use the transfer mask, then that seems to work pretty good. Even tempered glass, I've done that before, and again, the only way it worked was with the transfer mask. And normally it works pretty good. I bought some glass from IKEA, some of the flower things, you put the flowers in.
Yeah, the glass ones
work very well. They must be high temperature or something like that, glass, but most of the time it works pretty good. So, and IKEA is a great place to buy wine glasses. You can buy wine glasses there for 75 cents or whatever, 80 cents, and you can sell them normally pretty good, and then for a good margin, and then put the engraving on it too. So
yeah, so I'll just quickly go through the last two questions just so there's enough time for more. Types of materials that I can use on my laser. I mean, James or Brian, do you guys want to tackle that? I mean, what kind of materials?
To Brian.
PVC.
No. He's joking. Not PVC.
So depending on the type of laser you've got, the list is huge. I guess most of the people joining us would probably be CO2 laser users. Certainly in the UK, we supply far more CO2 than fiber laser. At which point you're looking at most organic materials. The most common ones that we use: plastics, woods, fabrics, rubber, paper and card, glass, mirror. Guys, am I missing anything? Leather,
food.
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 Absolutely. The
I
list
did
is
photographs on buns.
Yeah.
so you're more looking at the items that you can't process with a CO2 laser, and there's a few that Mike already mentioned. PVC that we need to stay away from because of the gases generated. You can't laser cut any metals, although you can mark them. So it's almost a case of needing to flip that question round to say what you can't do rather than what you can do.
Maybe
that's a good point. Let's go through what you shouldn't do.
Maybe Stephen is a safe guy.
Stephen,
Stephen,
what kind of materials do you think that are not good for lasers?
Yeah, well, PVC, carbon fiber. Stay away from carbon fiber as well. Anything that's got formaldehyde in it. Okay, so you got to be careful of some of your epoxy. Anything that's got a epoxy, most epoxies have a percentage of formaldehyde in them. So if you know you're going to cut something that's glue based, if you're going to cut MDF, make sure it's Trotec MDF or MDF that you can cut on a laser. There's some very cheap MDF that's got a formaldehyde contact because of the epoxy. So mainly carbon fiber, epoxy, and as we all, I think by now, most of the customer bases around the world are educated on that, and I would hope so. PVC. Stay away from anything that has PVC. What I think we should expand on is what has PVC in it. A lot of customers don't like that. There's the obvious sign vinyl, sign banner, anything from the sign industry. But there's a deeper list. So make sure out there, if you're going to engrave or cut something that you haven't seen before, try and get the MSDS for that before you cut, or reach out to us and ask first. It's always good to ask first.
Yeah, and we actually like the backboard material that we originally wanted was PVC, but we asked the manufacturer if they could do non-PVC. They could, a little bit more expensive, but we got the non-PVC. So just ask your supplier if there's a non-PVC equivalent to that. So speaking,
also,
go ahead, Mike. Sorry.
Just a second. Yeah, don't cut neoprene. And I believe Teflon you want to cut. I believe that creates fluorine gas. So again, those are a couple of other ones.
Urethane's not so good. How about this magnetic sheet?
Yeah, I was going to say, speaking of that, did anyone? I know we've tried cutting magnetic sheet before with not with a lot of success. Did Brian? Did you guys start? Yeah, go ahead, Mike.
Yeah, I mean, it depends on the magnetic sheet. If it's just the standard stuff you get in the sign industry, that stuff really sparks up really badly, and you get a really scorched edge. So all you can really do is put a transfer mask on that, cut through it, and just see what you're going to get. But I can tell you right now, it's going to be really typically dirty. We used to sell a laser friendly magnetic sheet, but I don't know if it's available. We don't sell it anymore. I don't know if that's available in the industry anymore.
Brian, do you guys have something like that in the UK for magnetic sheet?
No, much like you guys, we used to have a product, but it was never a seller, so it's not part of the range anymore. But like Mike said, I mean, you can cut it, but as soon as you handle it, you've got the residue of it all over your hands. If you've got the time to clean it up, fine, go for it. But I would suggest there's probably better ways to process it.
Mm-hmm. Perfect. And the final question here is how to work better with Corel Draw. So we kind of talked about it last week.
Yeah, there's just a lot of horrible.
Yeah, I'll put it quickly up on the screen again. If you type in Trotec Corel Draw on YouTube, so we did a basics webinar, just how to work with Corel, and Mike actually did default settings. Mike, do you want to just kind of comment on this one? Why would they want default settings for Corel?
Well, default settings, I mean, the most critical thing is that you're working in RGB as opposed to CMYK. So again, in the first thing in the default settings is to go in and make sure that you set your workspace to RGB as opposed to CMYK. So when you generate a fill or a line color, then it's in RGB, because a laser machine is not going to process. CMYK is going to be processed like a screen as opposed to a solid fill. And then if it's a CMYK colored cut line, then the software is not going to see it. So again, you want to work there. Normally I change the default settings. Normally when I draw a rectangle box, I want it to be done in red and I want it to be done in hairline. That's typically, so I set the defaults up for that. There's, maybe you want a certain font to come up by default. So there's certain things in Corel that you can change so that those things are, when you start something, it's in the proper format that you're normally using. Page size, maybe you want to always be in 12 by 24 as opposed to 8.5 by 11. So again, you can set those automatically to come up. So
perfect. Okay, so I'll move on to the next question. Attachment needed for rotary engraving tools. This one's actually from Keith from New Haven in the UK. I guess, does anybody want to tackle this one?
Yeah, I can. I've done rolling pins before, so rolling pins have two little ends. For those of you who don't know what a rolling pin is, two little ends with a tube in the middle that you roll your pastries with. Those two little handles on the end, one of them generally has a little screw fitting that you can unscrew. So if you hold the other end and you start to screw, one of them is going to start to let loose. When you unscrew those, now you're left with just the wooden tube in the middle. If you're trying to engrave any other kind of rolling pin besides a wood one, probably not a good idea. Probably won't work well, but a wooden rolling pin will work great. Now, the rotary...
we lost
James got stuck.
We lost James. Okay. Oh, there he is. He's back.
Sorry, James, you got stuck there.
I assume you have a Trotec cone style rotary attachment. We do have three types of rotary attachments: the cone style, the one with the rollers, and a chuck style as well. The one that I would use is this one here, this beautiful little beauty here. It has two cones, one inverted cone and one cone that is uninverted, whatever the opposite of inverted is right now. It's early here in BC. Come on.
Head and tail stock.
Thank you. Anyway, the rolling pin is going to fit between those. Once you remove the handles, it's very, very easy to get that in there. And the great thing about this style of rotary attachment is you can use a set of calipers to figure out what the diameter of your rolling pin is, and that way you can make a full, complete, perfect wrap around the part. Without the cone style rotary, it's going to be really hard to get that perfect wrap where it meets right at the edge. Anybody have anything to add to that?
Yeah.
Well,
go ahead. Mike. I was going to say I've got some good videos on with the rotary attachment, just so you can figure out how to do it. And yeah, James is right. Like most people that typically do the rolling pins are going all the way around the rolling pin. So and it's very critical that you put in the proper diameters, which figures the circumference out for your engraving area.
Great. Actually, we had Peter. Stephen said he's from one of your colleagues from South Africa. So I'm wondering what kind of magnetic sheets that you guys have that cut cleanly. If you guys want to email to us, maybe we can put it in the description of the video afterwards. Peter, if you want, go ahead. Sorry.
I said I bet you he's just using the regular stock and just going real fast. And then just making a score line and just snapping it like we do with the ABS or FRP or something. Yeah,
and it works very well. It does it works, but as Peter's saying there, I was cutting sheets and some of the magnetite actually flies up and can damage your lens. So you got to make sure air assist is important. Like Peter's saying, he's right.
Yeah, Peter, if you want,
you clean the lens too. Make sure you clean the lens after you do it.
Peter said standard stock, as James says. Okay. And we have a nice comment here. James is living in Hollywood Square's dream. I don't know what that
means. I love these squares. You nailed that, Aaron. You nailed that, because I actually feel like I've always wanted to be on Hollywood Squares. I always wondered, how they got up in those little chairs. Oh man.
Or what is it?
They
The
didn't want
Brady
to start a lean
Bunch?
back, right?
Brady Bunch as
The
well.
Brady Bunch. Yeah.
We need a theme song.
So we have Barbara from Dublin. She asked. She just said cutting paper. So I guess just discuss cutting paper. Do you guys any tips or tricks for paper?
1.5-inch lens,
Yeah.
air assist on a cutting table.
Vacuum table.
Vacuum.
Well, we want to. Yeah, downdraft is pretty. It depends on the how thick the cardstock is. One question that a lot of people want is maybe to do more than one at a time, and the problem with that tends to be the discoloration that happens underneath the top piece of paper. So I have done it, but again, it's more. It seems to be paper specific if you want to do more than one at a time. So all I can suggest, if you want to try it, go ahead. But certainly the 1.5-inch lens is going to give you the smallest kerf, which generates the least amount of residue. I'd certainly, if you're doing a lot of it, you can get away with a 2-inch, which is fine. But if you're doing a lot of it, the 1.5-inch lens is certainly better. 1,000 hertz. You want a high peak power to be able to vaporize quickly, so you get minimal flaming. So keep your hertz at 1,000, and try to use the least amount of power you can get away with, and just practice a little bit with it.
Remember to turn down your extraction.
Yes, good idea.
Your product stuck to the back of the machine.
Yeah.
And the key is laying it flat too. The flatter, the more consistent the height is, the better for cutting.
Yeah. Yeah, I've cut some huge white paper, like with really intricate designs on it, and if with a 1.5-inch lens, and it comes out perfect, like with no discoloration or anything on the front side and the back side. So it can be done. It's just a matter of making sure that you keep it as flat as you can, and then keep your power at the minimum, and 1,000 PPI hertz. So yeah.
Yeah, we got a good question here. Oh, go ahead. Sorry, Brian.
I was just going to ask the rest of the panel if they have any views on specification of paper, because we've found in the UK that you can buy two pieces of paper look exactly the same, laser cut completely differently, and it seems from our perspective to be a carbon content issue.
I don't know what you guys. What do you say?
I mean, anything that I've done, I mean, normally it's always a matter of testing it to see. I mean, most people, the kerf is very, very small, and normally it cuts really good. I don't have too many problems. What I have problems with is if there's some sort of a polyester type on the paper, like stickers or something like that. I've had some people who've come in who want to cut big sheet stock of stickers, so the kids can stick them on stuff, and they'll pre-print them and everything. The paper ones work good, but the polyester ones don't work very good because you get staining on the edge. But normally paper, I don't have too many problems cutting it. Engraving it is really going to be, as we all know, is really up in the air depending on what you get, depending on how the contrast in the back works. So
and is that what you were talking about, Brian? Like the engraving, like contrast with the carbon darkening or staying light.
It was more to do with the edge quality and how much it carbonizes the edge. So how much of a black mark you get around the edges and how clean it is when we pick it up.
Right.
We always recommend the same supplier in the UK generally for paper, if it's not something that we stock.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with Mike. So papers are fairly inexpensive. So you're gonna have to do some testing. Always start with a very low power and you go incrementally up. The less burning, the better. So find that minimum power that you can use to cut paper.
Yeah, and I'm just showing where you guys, if you want to purchase special laser paper, Brian, I think in the UK you guys sell this stuff too, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Perfect. So it's like thick cardstock that you can engrave and cut. Sorry, Mike. Go ahead.
Yeah, just one thing. I'm not here to put down anybody's machine or anything like that, but sometimes you're seeing samples that are being done, and if you're not getting the results, sometimes it can be your machine, because that's sometimes the difference between a higher end machine and a lower end machine is the quality of the beam. Like, a lot of people don't understand that the quality of the beam, especially when it comes to paper, is very, very critical in how clean you get your cut. And I've sold other brands of lasers, and you have to test to make sure that you can do this stuff. And if you're not getting the results that you see maybe us get or somebody else get, sometimes that's not the paper, sometimes that's the equipment. Okay, so again, the only thing I can suggest is air assist, the smallest lens that you can get away with, and use the least amount of power that you can get. And sometimes that's hard with glass tube type systems. Sometimes you can't dial that tube down enough that you can get that type of power, low power that you need to get. So just to caution people, sometimes when it comes to paper, that sometimes your machine is the reason you're not getting the quality sometimes that you see others get.
But with obviously with Trotec, you never had that issue.
No, I don't have that issue. So again, you want to have the air assist on, and you want to keep your hertz at 1,000. Very, very important that you get that peak power, and you'll get that at 1,000, which is the lowest you can go. And again, use the least amount of power you can get away with. So.
Perfect.
So if you don't have a Trotec, we're open until 4:30. Is that what you're saying, Mike?
Well, you know what I mean? There's other things like, we can get into beam expanders and blah, 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 and it, oval beams versus round beams and blah, blah, blah. But I mean, I don't want to get too technical here, but, that's, certainly some things to consider. So.
Okay. So our next question is from Jeff from Rochester, also in the UK. He just put, how much work is there for it? I think that's, I guess, universal.
For lasers?
Yeah, like what kind of work is there for lasers? Again, maybe the question, what isn't there for lasers? Who wants to tackle this one?
Give it to Mel.
There you go.
Sorry, what was the question?
What kind of?
No, I can't hear you guys.
Okay, how much work is there for lasers? What kind of work is there generally? I mean,
it's a similar question. Like, almost what material I can use with a laser. It's almost everything. Like, I got customers that are engraving and cutting chocolate with this machine. And like what I said, no disrespect, but I if I could circumcise with this machine, I'd probably do it. There's no limit to what you can do with the laser. It's just
the guys from Calgary, guys. They put
sorry,
cowboys in the back of their truck.
Bulls and steers.
No, there's just no limit. The limit is your imagination. I know it sounds cliche, but it is. Really, that's the limit. I've seen so many different ideas. Some of them I sell lasers like 3 months after I go back, and then I see their application. It just blows my mind. Like, wow, there's one time I saw this guy out in Edmonton. He was just a few success stories for you guys. It's a wooden block, so it's almost like the size of a dice, right? So they were engraving dot matrix code on them. So this block of wood, you can actually use your phone to scan that dot matrix code, and it has message on it. So you can put it on a bouquet of flower, right? And then when you scan it, it has customized messages on them.
Cool.
And this guy's selling thousands of those on Etsy and eBay. So talking about ideas. But as far as I'm concerned, I like big projects. That the big projects for me generates more revenue for less amount of work. That's how I usually do it. And I'm a big advocate of industrial applications. To me, industrial is the easiest applications to do. It's usually alphanumeric characters engraved on standard products, and you can always it's ordered by bulk. And yeah, to me, that's the biggest revenue generator is the industrial side of things.
No, that's great.
And
Mhm.
with industrial stuff, in a lot of cases, you're not treating it with kid gloves. You know, throw it into the pile because it's going to be placed on a some piece of industrial equipment that's going to get dirty and scratched anyway too. So the handling is a lot less in that case.
Go ahead, Mike.
Okay, I just ran and got some samples just to go back to the paper. I don't know if everybody can see this, but this is not a Trotec machine. You can see this paper here, how dirty it is. I don't have the good one that I did, but I do have, this has been etched. And then if you look at the cutting on here, it's perfectly clean. So that's why I say I took this sample that was done and I did it on ours and it was perfectly clean. So again, it's sometimes it's just the difference between equipment that we always have to consider. Okay, so it's knowing your limitations, I guess, is
it's not saying, it's not just bed size times wattage there, people. There's a lot of other factors that go into the cost of a machine. If you're looking to purchase a machine in the next year here, some people think, oh, it's a 2 foot by 3 foot bed and it's 100 watts. So now let's look at all the 2 foot by 3 foot 100 watt machines. Which one is the cheapest? I'll take it.
For sure. Yeah, Thomas Weinberger, our guy in Austria, just asked where to post questions. So that's a great one. We'll post this link in the description of the video as well. If you guys can ask priority questions anytime throughout the week, and we'll add it to the list and we'll go down this list. So again, it's bit.ly/ask Trotec if you want to just give us your priority questions. I had a good one here as well. Hello guys, super great content here. Thanks, Rajit. I have a Speedy 100 and having trouble cutting through your solid wood cherry 5 mil. Any general settings for our solid wood?
What's his power?
Yeah,
what's his wattage?
Well,
what wattage?
Let's give it let's say if it's 100 or no, sorry, not 100.
Steven. Let's give it to Steven.
I need to know what the power is. What's the power of this light?
Let's assume it's a 60 watt.
Let's assume it's a 60.
Well, if it's in good condition, I mean, I would just go, you don't want to go full power necessarily on a high power machine. If it's a low power machine, you're going to go full power. But if you're going to assume a 60 watt, which is, so it's 100. So, I would probably go, about 1% speed, 60 to 70% power around there, give or take. Agree, Mike?
Would you put any masking tape, Mike?
Yeah, definitely. That's always good. Not for cutting, for engraving, but in cutting, I wouldn't put masking tape.
No, masking tape. I mean, that's our cherry wood should cut pretty clean. It's 5 millimeter. I mean, as we said last week, the rule of thumb is 10 watts for every millimeter. So if he's running a 50 watt machine, then that's theoretically falls within the rule, right? Make sure your lens is clean. Yeah. Make sure the lens. I mean, again, this sounds like stupid questions, but as Steven can attest to, we always ask the stupid questions first.
I was going to say that.
Is the lens clean? Is the mirror clean? Over your head mirror, is it clean? Is your steering mirror on the far right side clean? How long have you had it? Are you in focus? It may kind of sound silly, but sometimes people maybe their focus tool isn't calibrated properly or something, or it's got out of calibration. So again, you might want to test that.
Speedy 100 lens upside down.
Yeah, well, especially 100 exactly. So if you take the mirror, if you take the lens, and you look at the lens and you see your face on the lens, your whole face, that's the up part of the lens. Okay, if you can't see your face, that's what's going down. So the face is going up, and if you can't see your face, it's going down. Okay, because that's a good point, because the Speedy 100s, those lenses, are free. So again, if it's not in there properly, so the convex is up and the flat area is down. So if you can see your face, that's up. So make sure that's a good point. Make sure you check for that too. So.
Yeah.
For sure. And actually, Stéphane Durand from Quebec asking PPE material is recyclable. I think, Stéphane, you're referring to the PET plastic and like the impact acrylic that we're getting for those face masks and the face shields. Do you guys know off the top of your head if they're recyclable? I mean, Stéphane, I could check for you and let you know from the manufacturer. But do you guys know off the top of your head, is PET recyclable?
PET is highly recyclable.
Okay.
Recyclable, yeah. And even our Lamicoid, to assert some of it is regrind in there, right? So I mean, there is some so-called recyclable. I don't know if it's recycled from external, but yeah, some of it is offcuts coming back in. So.
Yeah. I mean, acrylic is highly recyclable. PET highly recyclable. ABS is recyclable. So yeah, I mean that's it won't have the little triangle on it, but these materials are recyclable.
Awesome. Hey, Germany. Okay, so the next question is, well, I guess we get this a lot from Joseph from Iowa. How to make a living, I guess, with a laser. And I think the best person to ask is James, since he made a living, he had his own business, his own engraving business. James, how did you make a living?
Well, you pick up your shovel and walk to the mine. How do you make a living? You market. Now Lev is very familiar with marketing. You can be the best engraver in the world, and you can go and you can teach yourself how to engrave any material. You can be a very hardworking person. You can be great with people, but if you don't market your business somehow, nobody's going to know that you're there. And that was on day one. I opened my shop. I had my laser. I had my rotary engraver, my dye sublimation. I had my telephone system. I had my I had everything. And I sat down at my table on Monday morning and I went, okay, I'm ready for orders. And I looked around and I said, I got there's nobody calling. So the first thing I did was picked up the phone book. It was back then when we had telephone books, and I just started calling people. You need name tags? You need name tags? Okay, so yeah, direct marketing, like, that's great. I mean, I still do it to this day, but you need to find out ways of marketing your business, and this is going to help you. If you get an inquiry from some of the marketing that you do, and Lev has a whole list of ways you can market. If you have, if you get a job that you're not sure that you can do, well, call your trusty Trotec friend and ask them, hey, are you guys willing to help me? Think about can I do this job? And you're going to learn something from each of these inquiries that come in. Everything is different when you're working with this. When you're working with this equipment, and all the jobs are quite fun, and there's a lot that are quite exciting to do because it's the unknown, especially when you're first starting out. So market, and then get the information on how to produce these jobs, and you will learn a huge skill set. So Lev, if you can sort of expand on that marketing.
Well,
Stéphane made a good point there.
Yeah, actually, I was going to add to James's. It's marketing is more for the inbound, but for the outbound, it's the sales skills, right? And I think we have 4 sales guys on the panel. I mean, like what Amel or Brian. I mean, it's all about numbers, right? When you're selling, what's the 3?
3 numbers.
There's only 3 sales reps.
No,
James, Brian, and Mike. James, Brian, and Mike.
Well, I mean,
sorry, I forgot. Yeah, no.
Can you post Stéphane Durand's answer at the bottom there? Yeah, I think that's very important to actually.
Yes. Yes.
Hi, Stefan. How are you, sir?
Yes.
So, well, what kind of suggestions? What do you guys do when you sell? Like when you approach customers? I mean, is it more of the work ethic? You got to make the calls for, especially for outbound. Not, yeah. Go ahead, Brian.
But the most important thing from the sales side is to understand what your customers want. As a laser owner, you can make 1,000,001 different things, but if you're not making the right things, nobody's gonna want your product, and that kind of transfers across all types of sales, really. Until you understand exactly what it is that customer needs and how your product can bring value to them, you're not going to make sales. And that's the first key that we all look at as soon as we talk to a customer for the first time.
There you go, solution
That's a good
selling,
point.
right, Brian?
Solution selling. We've all done the course, Mal. We've all done the course.
That's a great point. What's the best? Oh, here we got one. I guess we get this pretty much all the time. What's the best formula to work out costing for jobs? Time taken, size engraving. We get this question all the time. So James has a long video on pricing out jobs. If you type in Trotec pricing out jobs on YouTube, you'll find it there. Mike, do you want to add something to that?
Yeah, I guess probably, the standard answer I always have is, we're somewhere around $1.50, $2 a minute for your engraving time, but that's just the engraving time. There also is the cost of your markup on your product if you are selling the product also, and thirdly, the time it takes you to produce the product in the software, and so your setup charge. So a lot of guys don't include this when they're doing things, and you sit down and I've been visiting people for a long time. I think the Knights were still at the castle in England.
94 years.
Yeah. But you see a lot of people, and you ask them, you say, well, okay, what'd you charge for that? Okay, what'd you get for the product? Well, what about your setup charge? What about your time that you spent a half an hour doing that setup? And the guy says, yeah, but I just include. Well, why do you include that? And I always go through when I used to be a multi-line rep, and I used to represent a couple of pin manufacturers. And the pin man, it was a large casting manufacturer, and 60% of their revenue came from the art department for generating the art. So 40% of there was all the millions of dollars they sold for castings, but 60% came from the art department. So you should be making money on your time that you're putting into generating that product. So you need to account for that too. So whether you bury it in I'm doing 1,000, so I'm going to put an extra 5 cents in for each one of those, or whether I just charge the setup charge. And don't forget, sometimes if you do charge a setup charge, that locks the customer in to a certain degree. We used to do that in the old days with the die. We've got the die. But sometimes if you have the artwork, then sometimes your customer's a little bit less willing to go to your competition or something, because you do have the time. Oh, it took me a long time to set this up, but I'm including this, however you want to do it. But put some value on that so that people value your time.
Do you guys divide cost of labor, cost of materials, and the cost of operations running? Is there an extra cost in your heads that you would use?
Yeah. Well, I think people, what they need is really a standard formula, because this is an ongoing question for many years, right? So and I keep telling these people, right, that every stage of the job is a profit center. You got to charge for your computer time, your design time, your lasering time, and everything. So we do have a formula for that, and there's two ways. Some people, they put a markup on it, but most people, the way I train them, and you should have a standard profit margin instead of a markup. A markup, there's a danger that you're losing money because you don't know, like similar to what Mike is saying, you're not accounting for every stage of the project. So you need that formula that you can use every time you're pricing out a job. So we do have that formula available. If anyone needs it, we can forward it to them.
Oh, wonderful. Okay, I'm just gonna put.
We can't do that in the U.S.
So U.S.
guys-
people don't look at it.
No, it's combines issues, right? So we talked about that. So
Yeah.
But no, I'm just kidding. As long as it's I guess if it's on YouTube, it's not a big deal.
So we got our next
Wild
question from Pauline in Spruce Grove, Alberta. Like everyone is asking, how to market in these times. I think obviously the times of the coronavirus. Brian, have you seen any? Obviously you've seen a lot of trouble in the UK. What are customers saying in the UK about business activities?
Well, look, this is a very challenging time in every country. But the world is still turning. People are still making sales. Some of our customers are very, very busy right now. How to market yourself specifically is going to be difficult in some marketplaces, of course. But the people that we've seen who have remained busy are the people that are really putting themselves out there, who are active with their social media, who are active with their marketing, and who are positive. At the minute, the world is doom and gloom, and rightly so. But people are naturally drawn to other people with a positive attitude. And I think when you're out there and you're marketing yourself, you have to remain upbeat. You have to remain positive. And I think from what we're seeing, it's the people that are out there and portraying a positive message. We're all going to get through this. Who are sealing the business, because that's the person you want to talk to. That's the person you want to do business with.
No, for sure. And again, if you guys have websites, if you sell your products online, I mean, obviously there's still shipping and all that kind of stuff that's still going on. So, I mean, Amazon hired hundreds of thousands of employees because their business is booming. I think obviously the biggest thing now is the PPE, the personal protective equipment, is huge right now for laser cutting. I mean, we're trying to get materials in for the face shields. You guys saw the video from this week. So we're getting that in. There's lots and lots and lots of requests for personal protective equipment. And again, we actually discussed this with Mike. Just make sure you talk to the governing authority. In Canada, for example, if you need to be approved by Health Canada to provide any kind of equipment for medical supplies or for consumer goods, for face shields. So, I mean, a lot of our customers actually, I think there's one called Inksmith that, they went from like 10 employees to 100 because they're doing so many of these face shields and personal protective equipment. So that would be my thing. What do you guys say?
Yeah, I mean,
Go ahead.
Yeah, I have to agree. Yeah, that's you said everything right there, Lev. I mean, in terms of how to market in these times, I always say that the people that make money are the ones that are marketing in bad times. So when the good times come, then those people, when they're ready to buy, they're going to come to you. So just because it's slow doesn't mean you're going to stop your marketing. This is the time when you want to get out, calling people, touching base with everybody, because when things start to pick up again, then they're going to be the ones that are going to come back to you. So
yeah, there's a lot of people who are so proud that they've never advertised. I don't everything's word of mouth, and very, very proud of this fact. And we've all dealt with people like that, and it's you've got to market if you because your customers at some point in a situation like this, maybe a lot of your customers will go away, and if you're not seen by the rest of the world, it's going to be tough to market to them as well.
Yeah,
Buzz
exactly.
Lightyear is making a good point here that certainly, as Brian had said, that marketing on Facebook and going to social media, there's lots of people that are marketing there because that's where everybody is. Everybody's at home, so the best place to get them is online. So
yeah, Quinn is actually asking just to confirm that we can't make the face shields for general public with being some sort of approved business for that. No, for general public, like I'm talking specifically for the medical industry. Like, so, for doctors and nurses, they need those face shields. So there's a lot of push now to make them on the lasers, make them on 3D printers and so on. Oh, sorry. Can you guys hear me?
We actually lost you, Mike.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, you're good now. You're good.
Okay. Yeah. So I was just saying, specifically for the medical industry, just find out in your local area what kind of what kind of laws and regulations have for producing this stuff. Some of the stuff, if you're going directly to hospitals, you might need to be Health Canada approved. This is in Canada. I mean, this coronavirus is across the world, so obviously it depends on the state laws, countries and so on. So that's what I was just going to say. For consumer goods, go ahead, Mike. Sorry.
Yeah. I was just going to say, you have to be careful if there's liability issues, especially in a hospital environment or in a healthcare that your product has to meet certain requirements. I know people are in short supply of stuff and everything, and I commend all the people that are out there doing it, but we all have to be careful too. So
there is
we're supplying
in Canada anyway. There's a Good Samaritan law where if you're helping the good fight and it's emergency equipment, you're not held liable. So just look up that. Don't take my word for it. I am not a lawyer.
You're not?
I am not a lawyer.
Well, you're to some degree, obviously, because I mean, if you make something that causes, I don't know, you might. We don't know if you're liable or not. So again, just to say to James, you want to consult a professional before doing anything. We're not lawyers. We can't give any kind of legal advice for this kind of stuff.
Well, what about if you're just selling it to the general public? Like,
I don't know.
Like in some countries now, it's almost like a fashion statement. Everybody's wearing a mask.
I think as long as it doesn't break it doesn't break or shatter or cause any kind of trouble. It's just like selling anything else that you laser cut or engrave, right? I mean, if you make a wine bottle but it cracks every time you open it and it's a danger to consumers, obviously that'll be a problem. So I think for the most part, if you're selling it to the general public, as long as the product is safe, it's up between you and the consumer. That's what I would say. We have a nice comment from Roland Wick. He likes your designer lamp there.
Ooh, it's beautiful.
I tried to improve my lighting earlier and changed the bulb. Didn't put the light.
We actually had to use the shroud around it to make.
It's made in UK. That's why.
Hey,
Roland, I appreciate that.
This one from Catherine, I really wanted to answer this one because this is something that I had problems with a long time ago, and a lot of my customers do. Now, there's lots of reasons for having carbon on the underside of your plywood, but I wanted to address one of the reasons that a lot of people don't realize, and this happens on machines that have shiny stainless steel beds and you put a cutting table on top of them. If you're using a lot of power, too much power to cut through your plywood, what's happening is that beam is shooting down and it's reflecting, diffusing a little bit and reflecting back up and actually burning the bottom of your plywood. That can happen, and it happens a lot to my customers. They're coming to me, why is there so much burning on the back of my plywood? It doesn't happen, if you have a Speedy 360 or SP 500, it's not going to happen as much because they have a black anodized aluminum underneath the grid, so there isn't any reflection. So if you do have a shiny table, you can throw some black anodized aluminum underneath of the cutting grid, and this will mitigate any reflection back up. But there are some other reasons for the carbon on the back. Does anyone want to take some of those? Maybe Steven?
Yeah, well, I mean, like you say, with the honeycomb table and the flashback, that's why in the other question about the plywood or the wood with the Speedy 100, keep the power. You don't necessarily run at 100% power with these applications. But the other thing is the honeycomb table. I mean, if the table's dirty and needs to be replaced, is it level? How much dirt's underneath the table? These are all things that's not going to leave a very clean edge underneath. So we got to make sure that the table, the working table's clean, and the honeycomb table, you know, that's a consumable item. And I've seen some nasty cutting tables in my life, and then the customer wonders why it doesn't work. So I would say clean cutting table. Take James' advice, you know, drop your power, and then we have some customers that also, instead of using a honeycomb table, they use shims to actually elevate the wood over the table by about this much, so that if there is reflection, that can help sometimes too. And then again, you know, depending on the machine, some machines are better at this than the others. So that's definitely your idea, James. I agree. And certainly, if your honeycomb table looks like it should be replaced, then yeah, let's replace that.
I once had a customer ask a question: Why is my honeycomb table lighting on fire?
Because it's got 5 years worth of wood resin on it.
It's 5 years old, and you've never changed it.
You could use that honeycomb table to light a barbecue.
What a good idea!
Actually, we had some person ask. Yeah, go ahead, Mike. Sorry.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I mean, the other thing is that, you know, what quality of plywood are you using? And certainly I can attest to doing a lot of testing over the years. And, you know, MDF is a really good common one where, you know, you'll get MDF from, you know, from Home Depot or somebody like that. And then you'll go to a commercial, and, you know, I've had people go to commercial wood suppliers and get a really good quality MDF, and it's amazing how the edge quality, you know, will be burnt on the Home Depot one, but on the good commercial grade one, it'll be brownish. So sometimes, you know, that burning that's happening is because you've got not very good plywood, and that glue might be reigniting. It's being drawn under the table because the air assist is shooting it down there too, right? So again, you might want to look at the type of quality of plywood that you're using, because plywood can, you know, we all know plywood could be off the Home Depot shelf, or it could be from somebody like our plywood or something, or you know, depending on the quality of the wood that you're working with. So
yeah, and also sorry, go ahead, Stephen.
Sorry, no, well, extraction's key here. I mean, this is one application or substrate that your extraction is key. And that's why some machines will perform better. Some of them have extraction from underneath and surface extraction. But they all can do a very good job. But if your extraction is not up to standard, if you haven't replaced your filters in a very long time, then that's going to have a direct effect.
And use 1,000 hertz on your cutting. So the lowest amount of hertz you can get away with gives you the greatest peak power, which will give you the greatest vaporization, and hopefully that will mitigate. Like, you'll see a lot of people that'll run at 5,000 hertz or whatever, and that's just that's overburning on it. So again, if you work with a lower hertz, you might find that to help out. So, and
store your wood properly. Don't, you know, you store your wood in the correct way. The wood warps, especially in humid climates, and you're going to put that warped wood into your machine. And even if it doesn't warp, just humidity in general changes the structure of that product that you can't see, and it's going to give off more smoke if it's a bit damp.
Awesome. Okay, we're just over an hour. We have lots of more questions, obviously, but we'll get to them next week. We got one more I can squeeze in. Be careful with different bed materials. The laser beam doesn't just stomp when it gets to the end of your material. It will burn ignite materials under your bed.
Yeah, and that's especially true on acrylic, because, you know, your acrylic, when you're cutting, that's why we always say never leave your machine when you're cutting, because especially with acrylic, you're creating a very flammable liquid, and every time it hits that grid, it can reignite it. So
perfect. Awesome. I think we'll end it there. So I want to thank Brian from the UK for being our special guest. Please,
thank you guys.
Definitely come back anytime. It was awesome to do this jam session with you. If you guys have any more questions, put them in the priority questions. We'll definitely get to them because sometimes we don't go through all the user chat questions. And Mike has one more thing.
Yeah, I think Brian's a lot better looking than Martin.
Whoa.
You tell him that too, because you tell him
what
that he didn't call us. He hasn't called us. He's promised he was coming to Canada. And
Is Martin Martin's
so
your boss,
we're out
right?
with Martin now. We're out with Martin. Tell him we want Brian to come over now.
I'll send him a link to this so he can watch it for himself.
For the viewers who are watching, Martin is your boss, right, Brian?
Martin is, yes. That doesn't make.
Tell him we have some pictures from Austria that are very good.
Hey, Warren.
I bet them a Mel too.
Warren from South Africa, you're next, buddy. I just saw his remark there.
Oh, there we go.
Warren.
Hey, hi, Warren.
Awesome. Thank you guys so much. All right, have a
Bye,
great one.
everybody.
Bye, everyone. Take care.
Thank you.
I'm not a lawyer.